try to fly.
Hello everyone, I am happy to welcome you to my channel. Today we are going to transplant the Dutch orchid after buying it, and now I will share my experience and show you how I do it. Let's get started. I was bought this beautiful butterfly. The variety is called ALBUFEIRA. Look how beautiful this orchid is. I have had it for a month since I bought it. It has fully adapted. New leaves have started to grow. New buds have appeared. Stalks continue to grow. And all this has happened at home. And this is also a sign that the orchid has fully adapted to my conditions and has entered into active growth. Incredible beauty butterfly. I will definitely make a separate review of it and tell all its advantages. And today we are going to transplant it to a new house. For this we need expanded clay, which I washed beforehand and selected whole pebbles. As a rule, I do not use broken pebbles. I try to use only whole pebbles. But I realized long ago that it is best to buy Plargon. It is even solid. Clayite is worse in this case because it is mostly sold not very good quality. We also need the best quality New Zealand moss. I always use it and recommend it to everyone because moss should be of good quality. I also prepared the New Zealand moss in advance, soaked it well in water, and squeezed it to a light moisture. Another ingredient is bark. I am going to tell you about the mixture and what I add to it. For this mixture, I use Ariatu bark. This bark is quite absorbent, but still not enough for the orchid to get enough moisture. To reduce the frequency of watering, I always add coconut chips to the mixture. I buy them in small sizes. I also buy expanded clay. I also buy it small to create a loose substrate, and so that the roots of the orchids can breathe well. Keramzit is not large, but different diameters. I repeat, it creates looseness of the soil. In this mixture, I also have ceramis. You see these pebbles? It is ceramis. It also creates moisture. And a little bit of moss, but I don't add moss because there are coconut chips, so it doesn't get too wet. So you have to choose either moss or coconut chips. Remember that, right? Bark is the base of the mix, coconut chips for moisture capacity. And then you add ceramis and expanded clay so that the substrate is not dislodged and the roots can breathe. This is the mixture I make. The proportions of the mixture are difficult to say. See the video. Personally, I intuitively create a substrate in which the base is bark. Pot. I took 2 pots because I don't understand yet what kind of root system my orchid will have and in which pot I can put it. That's it. Let's start transplanting. I soaked the pot and the root system in advance so that it was easy to remove it without damaging the roots, that they are well away from the walls of the pot. You can wrinkle it a little and then the orchid will easily come out. The roots of this orchid are gorgeous. Very beautiful, good green ball in active growth. These are these fringes of green color called active root growth. But that's not surprising because it's spring, it's the time when the plant comes to life and active growth starts. Now we must clean the orchid from the old substrate. This can be done with a stick or any convenient means. This mixture in which the orchid grew, we will not throw away. Some amount will certainly add to the mixture that we have prepared in advance. We do this because this mixture already has microflora in which it is used to live. And in order to populate that microflora in the new house, we will take some old bark so that the adaptation of the orchid would be easy. Here we have cleaned the roots from the old bark. If you have pieces of bark that, without moving away from the root, with effort, it is not necessary to do it. You do not need to damage the surface of the root. Let it stay there. Is nothing wrong with it. As you can see, The roots of our orchid are very good. And now I want to show you the very peat cup, which brings a lot of trouble to our orchids. It is located in the center of the root system, at the base of the neck. As a rule, this cup is always overwatered. Tactilely, if you don't know, it's like a sponge. It does not have a chance to dry out because it is in the thickness of the roots in the middle of the pot. The bark dries out, but this peat cup always stays moist. Constant moisture at the base of the orchid leads to neck rot and the death of the entire plant. Therefore, if you water your orchid before transplanting it, it must be done very carefully. The previous video on this channel is about how to water an orchid with a peat cup until it is transplanted. I made this video because I was constantly asked how to do it so as not to harm the orchid. So, this is the peat cup we removed. Remove it from the roots until it is completely cleaned. It is not necessary to leave any pieces here so that under the ash of the flower was clean. I never soak the roots in this condition. That is, if the root system is not in a very good condition and you see that there are rotten roots, in this case I take this drug. This is Previcor Energy. This preparation acts on the rotted roots and cures them. There are instructions on the package itself. It is easily diluted, and then we soak the root system of the flower for 30 minutes. This is in case the root system is not very good. In the case of our albufeira, it is not necessary to do this. After cleaning, I do not rinse the roots under water. Many advise to do this, but I do not do so in order to preserve all the microflora that is on the roots of the plant. This orchid has such good roots, there is not a single root that needs to be removed. All very good, perfect quality. Of course, I prepared garden shears in advance, but nothing to remove. Very often there are very dry roots on the surface of the pot above the substrate. They usually need to be removed, but my root system above the substrate is also of good quality. I don't see any point in touching or cutting anything off, except for this one root I will remove. In general, without necessity, never cut off anything, only that the orchid is definitely no longer useful. Okay, that's all taken care of. Now it remains to choose a pot according to our root system. This flower sat in my standard 12 cm pot, and now I will try to plant it in a 15 cm pot. In this pot it sits just fine. Now we need to pick out the best solid pieces from the old substrate to transfer to the new orchid pot. I think a handful will be enough. Now we take the pot and pour expanded clay on the bottom of the pot for drainage. After that, we carefully put our orchid in the center of the pot. All the roots that were on the surface of the pot, we immerse in the substrate. They are considered air roots, and we will now put them in the pot. It also happens very often that the lower leaves on the flower are not needed. In order for us to root the orchid well, so that the root growth went from the neck of the orchid, we snip them well or cut them off. After we have placed the root system in the center of the pot, orient not on the peduncle, but on the flower itself. That is, the flower should be planted in the center of the pot, and the peduncle itself will go to the side. We take our substrate and begin to pour in a circle and shake the pot a little, so that the mixture fell between the roots. Strongly tamp the mixture is not necessary, so that the roots of the orchid to breathe freely. Air circulation in the roots is very important for the orchid, because in the natural habitat of these plants, the roots do not have any mixture or substrate. In nature, they are attached to tree trunks and rocks, so this is a growing feature that should always be kept in mind. Compressed substrate always leads to rotting of the root system and death of the plant. Or then you will have to build up and treat the root system for a long time, which will delay the flowering of the orchid and the enjoyment of your beauty. Don't forget our pieces of bark that we chose, because I almost forgot. They can be added at any time when the pot with the mixture is forming. Her peduncle is big, her flowers are heavy, so we will now necessarily fix the peduncle, because it wobbles and tilts the flower. Now I will show you how I leave space near the roots. If an artificial space is created, I also do not touch it and do not fill it. This substrate is quite enough for the orchid to have moisture near the roots, and an extra pocket of air will only benefit her. We're finally done. Now we're going to attach the peduncle. When you insert the peduncle holder, carefully pierce so as not to damage the roots. If you feel that you run into something, try to go around so that the roots are not damaged. Now we're attaching our beautiful large peduncle. With the help of paper clips, I always form my flower stalks to make them beautiful. This is how I move the branches of the orchid. Now I will also put our moss on top, so that it creates additional moisture near the orchid leaves, and additionally retains moisture inside the pot. Many do, instead of moss coconut fiber. It's up to the person who likes it. I like moss better, because orchids like it more and reach for it with their roots. Therefore, it is very likely that from the neck will be formed new roots. I also want to say about one nuance. When you fill the root system with bark, leave the neck on the surface. You cannot deepen it much. Otherwise, it is not always possible to trace how much overwatered bark near the neck of the orchid. If the neck of the orchid will be a constant high humidity, then rotting is possible. Therefore, we deepen, but not too much. This is a very important point when planting. Here we are planting, the orchid is over. You can see the result on the screen. That is, we minimally traumatize the roots of the orchid. You can say I did a transplantation of the orchid, so as not to greatly disturb the lump of roots. After transplanting, I do not immediately water the orchid. I do it after 2 days. This is done so that if the roots during transplanting were any injuries, they can heal. 2 days is enough for the root injuries to heal. During the first month, you can water the orchid with fertilizers, such as succinic acid, root educator, and epin. Epin is a fertilizer that helps the plant adapt and relieve stress. After a month, you can switch to your standard fertilizer that you are used to. That's probably all for now. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments. I hope that my short video lesson will be useful to someone, and you too will learn how to grow properly and get such a beautiful and high quality blooms as I have. Subscribe to my channel, put likes and bells. See you all again. Bye.
try to fly.